Hello and welcome to a Red First painting tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to paint Ortan Cassius from the Deathwatch Overkill game. Okay, so for the first step you want to paint the entire model in Abaddon Black, making sure not to miss any areas and apply it in two thin coats to not block out any detail. After you've done that and that's dried, take some Dark Reaper from Citadel, give it a shake and add it onto your palette. Just like so, because we'll be using that momentarily. Just grab a piece of toilet paper or anything which is absorbent, and just dry brush the whole model, so just keep brushing on here until most of the paint's gone. And once it is, just grab the model, just sideways strokes, up and down, just covering the entire model in Dark Reaper to bring out any of the highlights and details or anything like that, just to ensure that it brings out all the edges and everything else. Okay, so after you've done that, it should end up looking something like this, a bit less bland than the flat black, but now that it's dried, you want to grab some Celestra Grey, give that a shake, and the reason we added the Dark Reaper to the wet palette is to add this onto there. Wash your brush out, make sure it's nice and dry so that way you don't get any water mixed into your dry brush. Then mix a little bit of Celestra Grey into the Dark Reaper to line it up, just a little bit, and then dry brush the whole model again, so just wipe most of the paint off the tissue. But this time you're aiming only for the areas which you can see from a top-down view, so that way it looks like it's the height or light reflecting off of the armour. So just on the top of the arms, the shoulder pads, the back of the leg here, the toes here, and the knee pad, and just a few other areas just to really ensure that you've hit all the highlights and where the light would hit. Now just keep repeating this step until you've got a little bit of a nice little highlight throughout the entire model, but each time making sure you're hitting slightly smaller areas. For example, mix in more Celestra Grey, only hitting the top of the backpack, the head, the front of the armour, the staff, and the arm. After you've done the fourth layer of the brighter highlight, you want to introduce a tiny bit of Corex White into your mix you've created. So just a very small amount, just about that much. Add that in there. Mix it into your little palette here. Take off a lot more than normal before then with the tissue paper. Just once again ensuring it's mostly off the brush, and then very, very lightly going over the highest points, just like the shoulder pad, the staff, the arm, the very back of the foot, and the toes. And then that is your black armour basically done. Once that's dry, just grab some Nuln Oil here, apply it onto the model as you would normally, mainly aiming for the recesses and all over the model. Just grab some on your brush and add it onto the model, like on the shoulder here, just to bring it back down to a bit more of a dark black instead of a blue-grey sort of tone. Just keep grabbing some, allow it to pool in some areas but not too many, to the point where it starts to just cover everything else. Okay, so once it's dry, it should look something like this here. But for the next step, you're going to need Macragge Blue. Give it a nice little shake, and add that to your wet palette here. Now just apply it after watering it down. Just put it on top of the shoulder pad here, all over it except the very edge. Just all around here, bottom half, just through here. Don't worry about filling in the letters, but we'll paint those out later. You want to paint the shield on the front here, you want to paint that blue, and then that's the blue done. Okay, so once that's dry, grab some Calgar blue, give it a good shake, add it to your palette, then cover all the areas, avoiding all of the dark recesses, leaving only the main center to be blue. Okay, after 2 layers, your shoulder pad and shield should look something like this. Here. Now for the next step, I'm going to grab Ortan Grey, give it a nice little shake. Since it's near white, you want to shake it very well. See, it's still a bit mixed there, so give it another quick little shake. Okay. Now you want to grab some of the paint here, grab it, put it on your palette again, and where you see the logo on the shoulder pad here, just want to go over that in Ortan Grey, all the way around it, making sure not to miss any spots there, just making sure that you get good coverage. This will probably take multiple layers since it is near white, and white seems to be a bit of a bum to paint with. So, yeah, just keep going until you've done all the logos on the shield and on the shoulder pad. Okay, so once it's dry, it should look like this after about 5 layers. So it takes quite a few layers to get done, but once it's done, it looks okay. But to continue with that, you're going to grab some Corax White, give it a good shake, and put it onto the wet palette. Thin it down a little bit. Once again, since it's white, it's very thick and a bit of a one to work with, so once again, but same thing as we did with the blue, trying to avoid the very deep recesses while still covering a large area, like all the little screws and the very corners of the little charm on the center of the logo, and then just repeat this again for the ultramarine logo in the center of the shield. So just keep going there, here and there. And once again, it might take a few layers, but once it's done, it should end up looking pretty good. So, there. Okay, so after it's dry, it should look something like this. The rim going all the way around. Now to make it a bit brighter, I'm going to take some Liberated Gold, give it a nice shake, open it, put it on the palette, give it a little spin, then right at the corners, like here, you just want to put the very edge of your brush against it, and lightly bring it forward a bit, just for a pinpoint edge highlight, to make the corner a bit brighter than the rest. So, because that's where the light would hit the most, so just do that. Once it's dry, then you'll have a nice looking shoulder pad. Okay, so we're now working on the little jewel in the center of the shoulder pad here. So once again, you want to take your Retributor armor, just base coat the very edges. Yeah. This corner here, like that. Just cover the entire jewel and logo with Retributor armor, and once that's dry, we will continue just highlighting it and making it look a bit prettier. So just cover that up and let it dry. Okay, so now that's dry, we want to go again with the Liberator armor, just on the very edges again, just giving it a nice little point highlight, just to brighten it up a bit. Stop it from looking so bland and plain. And then after that, we're going to do the jewel in the very center. Okay, so to paint the jewel, you're going to want to grab some Moot Green, give it a shake, open it up, put just a very small dot on a very small brush, the very tip. You should only have about that much. And paint that right in the very center where that gem's going to go. Like that. Then we'll add a little glint to it to make it look like it's glowing. Okay, so to make it look a bit shiny and glowy, you're going to grab a bit of Corax White again, and just dot it right in the center of the dot here. Just right to the top of the center dot there. And there. That's your shoulder pad finished. Okay, so for the next step, I'm going to grab some Bugman's Glow, put that on the palette, and we're going to base coat the head. Just grab a bit of it, put it on your palette, water it down a bit, make it flow a bit easier off the brush, and then just paint the head. Just make this focus. Here, just paint the entire head in Bugman's Glow. And once that's dried, we'll add some highlights and I'll show you how to paint some eyes. Okay, so after 2 coats, it should look something like this. Yeah. Now to highlight, we're going to go in with Cadian Flesh Tone and just layer it on the face, hitting all the high edges. Just like the cheekbones, the nose, the chin and the lips, and the very top of the head. Since he's a baldy, he's moulding. So just cover the top of the head, the cheekbones, the center of the forehead and the nose, the chin here at the side, the ears, and do that for each side. It's just up, down strokes, painting the chin, making sure to leave gaps for the eye sockets. Yeah, there you go. So after 2 coats, it should look like this. But now we're going to do the eyes using Abaddon Black. Give it a good old shake. Open it up and grab your paint. Put it on your palette. Now you want a very small amount, and you might want to hold your breath when doing this. Because what you're going to do, you're going to paint the very eye socket in here. So, just hold your breath, use the very tip of the brush to paint the very center of the eye. There. Very much again. Just do this for each eye. So that's one eye, just do the same for the other one. Okay, so now that's dry, it should look something like this. So you want to grab your Corax White from off your palette, roll it again. Now you're going to want to go even smaller, leaving just the very edges black. Don't cover up any edges, just the very, very center of the eye. Just hold your breath again and brace your hands well. Sorry if you can hear outside, there's a bit of a rainstorm going on. Okay, so I've done both eyes now. Now I want to go back in with the black and paint the pupil, which is an even smaller dot in the center of that. Now you want to be very careful when doing this, because as you just saw, I just ended up blacking out the white, so you want to have to do that eye again. Just try to keep the positioning the same for each eye, otherwise it'll end up just looking very derpy, which isn't what you're after. These are supposed to be genetically modified superhumans purely for war. Okay, so now that the eyes are done, we're going to go in and do a bit of tidying up with the Cadian Flesh Tone, which we use to highlight it. So if it goes onto the cheekbone a bit, just paint over it, make it look a little bit tidier, and stop it looking like the eyes are falling out of their sockets. Yeah. Okay, so to paint the wart on the very center of his head right there, I'm going to go in with some Screamer Pink. Just put a very small dot at where that's supposed to be. So just grab it, put a very small dot of paint on your brush, and just dot it on where the wart is. And there you go. The head is very nearly done. And after it's dried, we're just going to apply a wash of Reikland Flesh Shade to darken it a bit and make it all the details pop. Okay, so as I said, we're just going to go in with some regular flesh shade, just cover over the entire head, and just getting it right in all the recesses, just ensuring that all the details are saved, so you can see them very clearly. You don't want to put all this effort in for it to be covered up and not very noticeable. Yeah, just trying to get, there you go. All over the head like this. It may look dark at the minute, but once it's dried it'll look a lot clearer. Okay, so now that the head's dry, we're going to work on the silver arm here. So first thing you want to do is grab a bit more Abaddon Black, add it to your palette, add a little bit of water, just to water it down a bit, because the arm is very detailed. You don't want to block out any of those details. So just go in with your brush, just paint over the arm, making sure not to let any of the paint pool in anywhere you don't want it to go. Just paint all over the arm and on the wings on the staff. Just make sure it's very clean and tidy. This will probably take a few coats since we have thinned it down, but it'll end up with a cleaner effect afterwards. Okay, so the next step for the arm and the silver is to grab some lead belcher, give it a good old shake, and just dry brush it on. So once again, grab yourself a bit of tissue, wipe most of it off, and then once you're open to, just grab the area you want to hit and just cover over it. And this is a very lazy and quick way of getting the all the writing and other mad detailing inside of the shoulder pad to be very visible without having to edge highlight every single one. So you can just keep going, just do the entire arm in this. The wings here, do them in it, just make them a nice silver. Then also do the pommel at the bottom here. And then also, we're going to be using lead belcher after filling in the name in black here, like we did when we pasted this stuff here. We're going to individually paint the letters using lead belcher, because there's no real way of dry brushing there without ruining the rest of the paint job. So just grab a nice bit of lead belcher, put it on your palette, grab it and painstakingly paint every individual 3D letter on his shoulder pad, just like this, until it just spells out his name, because everyone's got to have their name written on their shoulder pad. So yeah. Okay, so now you want to paint all the chains black, and we're going to paint each link individually, because once again it's pretty close to other stuff. So just grab all the chains, paint them all in Abaddon Black, get them sorted. Also, you might want to base the gun in black as well, because we're going to be dry brushing that just like we did before. So I just wanted to focus mainly on the staff and the arm. So same thing again, just base it all in black. Might take a few layers, but once it's done it'll look a lot better. Then you'll also want to do the halo on top of the head in black as well, because we're going to be dry brushing that gold. Then we're going to be painting the logo inside, just like we did on the shoulder pad and his shield. So yeah, I'll be back in a second. So now the chains have dried, we're going to go in with some more lead belcher and paint each individual link, which isn't going to be as painstaking as writing the name. Just simply go in, paint the center ones, then the top ones. And trust me, this will end up looking better than if you dry brushed it, because you'd gotten it everywhere. And you have a either very precise or have a very small brush. So yeah, just pick out all the chains like this, and then you've got your chains. So for the halo, just using Retributor, dipping the brush into the paint, wiping most of it off. A lot of it is just dry brushing, but it does give off a very nice effect dry brushing. So just take the halo here, dry brush it in that, make it all look like a brassy sort of very light gold. Sort of dirtied and worn after battle. So yeah. Now to paint the laurels underneath the halo here, just these little leaf patterns here. You want to go in with Warflesh as a base coat. Just take that, add it to your palette because you'll probably be using it for something else. Add it to the middle bit here with the leaves, and just paint all the leaves like that. Now to paint the logo in the center of the halo, I'm gonna go with Ortan Grey and paint it exactly like you did on the shoulder pad and the shield. Just grab some Ortan Grey, paint the very center here, just here, very middle, making sure to hit the inside as well, not leaving that black, and do the same on the back again here, just making sure that it's all covered. And now as that's drying, to finish up the laurels you can go with Warboss Green, give it a nice little shake, add it to your palette, then paint each leaf on the laurel. So, very tip here, that's the very tip there, all of the leaves individually. Just pick them out very quickly. Make sure they're all nice and evenly spaced like that. If you don't do it well, it's okay. You've basically got all of it to work with due to being organic, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So even if things go wrong, there is a bit of an upside to it. Don't really make it fully one way of right or wrong. So just paint all those, and by now the Ortan Grey should have dried, so you can go in again with your Corax White, add that to your palette, and just paint it again. Then that's the halo on top finished. There you go. Nice and clean looking so far. Okay, so now to paint the gun, we're going to take the very inside section right here and colour that in corn red. Just give it a shake, pop it open, add some onto your palette, and using the small brush to avoid all of the silver sections, you're going to just go in, just paint the very centre section with corn red, making sure it covers everywhere, while still not covering up any of the detail we've painted on. So then after that we're going to highlight it with Mephiston red, just to give it a bit more colour. And that's the gun done. Then we're going to pick out all the parchment. Okay, so now that that's dry, we're going to pick it out with Mephiston red, give it a shake, and add it to the palette. Water it down a bit, because you don't want to end up blocking any detail again. Just go in, all the high points and areas where there wouldn't be shadow, the light would be hitting. You just want to go in and paint over it with Mephiston red. So just making sure not to go into the recesses, because then there would have been no point in basing it in corn red now, would there? Just up and down, all in the recesses. Now, as that's drying, we're going to grab some dried bark, give it a good old shake, add it to the palette, water it down again. Now we're just going to be painting the very centre of the staff here, the wooden section of the handle, just here. There you go, just paint all over this and get it looking all nice. Draw, it's supposed to be a wooden handle, making sure not to miss any spots. Just keep going in. If you miss anything, just go back in with the dried bark. And there, you got a nice little staff there. And then whilst that's drying, we're going to go in with Mornfang and paint the book on his hip. Just grab Mornfang, base coat all of this. Just a normal Mornfang brown. Water it down a bit, get it right on the edges. Right there on the very, very ledges. Right where the book is closed. And there. Now, you can grab a shabty bone to do with a parchment with. So just grab that. Open this. Put this there. Water it down a bit because this paint does like to be quite thick. And just base coat all of the parchment. Like underneath the shield here, the purity seal. Just keep doing that. Do it in the leg here. Making sure not to forget about the back. Then there's also this parchment here. Base coat that in a shabby bone. Just keep going. It'll probably take multiple layers because we have thinned it down so it's not as thick as normal. So there's your parchment, and you can just go in right where the book's closed and paint all the pages. Just like this, right where the book shuts. Paint the pages with a shabby bone, making sure to not miss any spots. Afterwards you can just do any tidying up if you've mucked it up anywhere. Yeah, boom. Okay, now to paint the scope of the gun, you want to grab some moot green, give it a good old shake, add it to the palette, take that, and right on the little balls of the end of the scope there, where it's round, you want to paint a little bit of moot green on there. Try not to get a little bit of paint there like I did, but do it on both sides. You can always tidy that up afterwards if you do. And then that's done. And now since the parchment's dry, what you want to do is go in with some Agrax Earthshade. Give that a nice quick shake. Grab some out of the pot. And just add that to the parchment here. Okay, there, make it look like a nice and dirty bit of parchment. Add a bit there, and there, and in the book as well. This, we picked up a bit, that bit's not dry, so do that bit in a minute then. Yeah. Now for the staff, going back to that, you want to grab your Mornfang brown again, grab that. Then right where the ridges are, you want to highlight that area, like this, yeah, so you can see the light change a bit, right at the edge. So it looks like there's light catching on those areas, because it would. Yes. Like that, just separate those areas off. If you can, hold the side of your brush against it and paint it with the side of your brush. It makes it a bit easier to do. Just do that the entire way down the staff. Now to do a bit more work on the book, you want to grab some lead voucher, reapply that to your palette because it ran out. So right on the corners here you'll see where it's raised slightly, so just paint those in silver on both sides. Then there's the little ridges at the very back. Yeah, paint those in the silver. And then paint the logo here in the middle. This will be a bit more difficult since it's not really an edge, so you can't really hold your brush up against it too well. But once it's done, that's the book almost finished. So yeah, that's that done. And now the parchment is dry, so you want to go back in with the shabby bone to hit the areas like here leaving only the Now to paint the book, I've just gone in with lead voucher and just done the corners, the logo in the center, and the very ridges on top of the book. And now I'm going to go in and do the parchment by grabbing some shabty bone off my palette. I'm filling in everywhere except for the darkest recesses where the wash had pooled, to make it a bit more of a gradient into the darkness. So yeah, just repeat this for every bit of parchment, including the insides of the book. So yeah, be back in a sec. Now, to separate the Under Armour from the rest of the suit, and by Under Armour I mean the knees and the elbows and all the joints, I'm going to be going in with Mechanica Standard Grey and painting each little ridge individually using a very small brush. Here I've got a size 0, so just go in and just paint the very top of the ridge, and just repeat this for every single ridge in the armour, and then you've got the Under Armour done, and then we're very nearing completion. Now to paint the skull in the centre of his chest, we're going to take some Retributor armour and just paint all over that, including on the arms, going past it. Just going to do this for the entire area here, and we're also going to do this little section here where the parchment attaches to. So just keep painting here, get it nice and consistent. You don't want it very blobby. Just make sure it's not too thick anywhere, otherwise you'll be blocking out detail. And after this is dried, you go in with Liberator Armor Gold and hit the highest points. Okay, so now to point out all the little details, like this grenade here, here, and some of the belts there. What I'm going to be using is Caliban Green. So just give that a shake, open it up, put it onto your palette, twist it off nice so you got a nice fine point, and just paint where you want it to go. Just paint over there, here, here, and just over here on the very side and bottom. And that's that sorted. Now, to paint the books or the pouches on the hip here, I'm going to be going in with Mournfang, just base coating those, just making sure to cover it all over, don't want to miss any spots. And now, as that's drying, I'm going to finish up the book by going with some Steel Legion Drab, rubbing that off and just giving it a shake, twist it off, and just at the very edges here, just do a slight little, just keep drawing a few very small lines and make it look a bit scratched and worn, as leather does, just like that. And same on this edge here and there. And then you want to do the same thing with the pouches on his side. Now, for the grenades on his side, you want to go in with Warflesh and just come in here, just paint the very bottom here, leaving once again only the middle recess, and then all the little squares here you want to paint individually. The back there. And that's all the grenades done, other than this one here. Now, we're going to go in with some Screamer Pink. Right here. We're going with this and paint the little circle here on top of the parchment here to make it into a purity seal. So you just grab a little blob of it here. There's not any detail there, so you don't have to worry about being too thin. Obviously it's better if you are, but get too much in it, just wash the brush out and just pick it up with your brush. And there, wait for that to dry, and we'll go over that in corn red. Okay, so now you're going to do the scratchy pattern with Steel Legion Drab again, but this time on the pouches on his side. Here. You want to go in there, just a little scratch here and there on the side of it, just to give it a little bit of more realistic battle damage, to look a bit more worn and damaged. And then that's the Steel Legion Drab done. Yeah. Now you're going to go in with some corn red and paint the very, very top edge of the purity seal on his leg here. Just going to paint the rim here, paint over this, and then a little dot in the middle, like that. And then going to grab some Liberator Gold and do the details on the skull here. Just fill it in. Liberator Gold, make it a bit less vibrant, a bit more tired. Just dot that about there. And now we are almost ready to base. Now for the base I want to colour the rock under his foot right here. I want to colour it with corn red mixed with a bit of Mournfang brown. So I'm just going to use the corn red already on the palette. Going to grab a little dot Mournfang and mix that in. If you feel it's a bit boring, then just feel free to add a bit more into it. Just make sure you wash your brush out. You don't want to get any excess paint in your pot here. Just add a little dot there. Mix it in a little bit, make a really ugly sort of red-brown sort of colour. And then paint that onto the rock here. And then just paint the little snake for the Genestealer Cult logo on the front. You just want to paint that a sort of gold to make it pop out a bit more against the boring rock. So just going to colour over that. And then that's the rock painted on there. Now, to base the model, I'm going to be using Martian Iron Earth. So just give this a good shake. Now, to get the effect you want from this, you want to be very blobby with how you apply it. Just scoop up some, slap it on the base, and just blob it on, sort of like this here, making sure to hit everywhere and not leave any black spots. If you do though, worst case scenario, after it's dried you can just go in and paint a bit more. Grab another little scoop, add it onto here. Just add this here. Make sure it's very thick what you're trying to do, because otherwise the cracked effect which this gives off won't work and it'll end up just looking like you painted it normally, which isn't what you're looking for. Now if you end up like this, where it looks very paint scratchy and you can see all the strokes, what you want to do is just go in with your brush and just stipple on top and just stab it repeatedly to remove the brush strokes. So like this. Yeah, just stab it on. Just keep stabbing it, and then once it's dry you can go in and paint the gold Genestealer Cult logo on the front of the rock, and then we're going to dry brush it and it will be finished. Now for the last step, to finish off the base, you're going to go in with Steel Legion Drab, give it a good old shake, open it up and dry brush. So just fill up your brush, rub it right into the bristles using your tissue paper, and then dry brush all over the base. Just everywhere. And then after that you want to pick out the logo on the rock and then you're done.